Good morning, sir. What is your name and can you tell when and where was you born?
I was born in Hanoi
Yes.
at 29 December 1927.
Wonderful. Why and when did you join North Vietnam Army?
I was in the North Vietnamese Army in March 1946.
And what was your highest ranking when you left the North Vietnam Army?
My highest ranking is colonel.
Colonel? Wonderful. And what do you think about North Vietnam Army? Why they fought very hard during the war? And somebody said they were forced to do that. Can you tell what you think? What do you think about North Vietnamese army?
I was win the war in the 75.
I see.
Yes, the war at the time is ended. It's bitter.
Yes. What was the motivation for the North Vietnamese army fought that hard and win the war at the end? What the motivation?
I think at that time I understand that was for the Vietnamese independence.
Independence from what, sir?
Independence from French colonialism. From French colonization.
Yeah.
Colonization.
But after the French left, there was no more French there. Why they, still fighting hard? We're talking about the war between 1954 until 1975. There were no more French there.
54. Yes, after Dien Bien Phu battle. Yes, the French leave our country. Yes. And after that, begin the war between the North and the South.
Yes. What the soldier in North Vietnamese army believe in the war? Why they fought that hard? You think that what was in their mind?
At the time, you see, there's a Geneva Agreement, and according to Geneva Agreement, there will be a general election for all the country after 2 years. But this don't happen.
Why? Why didn't happen? Who didn't make it happen?
Because the American side and also the South Vietnamese government at that time don't want a general election. Because if a general election take place, the North Vietnamese of Ho Chi Minh would win.
Do you think so?
Yes.
I
think so.
But at that time, when Ho Chi Minh, you were very close to Ho Chi Minh during that time, when they decided, when Ho Chi Minh decided to invade South Vietnam, and how they do it?
I think after 2 years, there are not the election for all the country, and so the Communist Party Central Committee decided to begin the war against the South Vietnamese for the reunification of the country.
Yes. But how they do it? They send troops to the south, or how they did the invasion to the south?
Yes, they decided to invite our troops from the north to the south. But to hide this aspect, they constitute the front the front of South Vietnamese.
I see. So they hide their, purpose, and then they said that because of the South Vietnamese stood up, and they used that like a shield for the invasion behind North Vietnam invaded South Vietnam. Was it a true statement?
Yes, at that time they claimed that for the reunification.
I see.
Yes, and to employ the forces of our army to, in the first time, to infiltration in the south.
Infiltration.
But after the murder of Ngô Đình Diệm president, the envoy on the relics of our army to the south.
I see. That's what happened. What do you think about that decision?
The decision, you see, we at the time we understand for the reunification, but in the end we realize that is not for the reunification or not for the independence. In the end of Ho Chi Minh is to communistization of the Indochina as a whole.
So you said that their purpose is they have an expansion program, and they want to eventually took over Indochina.
Yes.
Will be ruled under communists. That's their ultimate goal.
I think that at times they apply to fulfill the ends fixed by the international communist of the three international communists to communization on the war, the whole war. And they have defined that it is the Stalin who occupied the communication of all the world, and Mao Zedong is for the Asian country, and especially for Indochina Communist Party of Ho Chi Minh to communization of the Indochina, of the three countries, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos.
I see. So their ultimate goal is they divide the war into two parts. One will be controlled by Stalin, and one is controlled by Mao Zedong.
Yes.
And you know that the truth because you were very close to them, and you know that was the truth.
Yes. And Ho Chi Minh used the independence only for the pretext, but in reality, he fulfilled the task fixed by the international communist movement.
I see.
And directly by Stalin.
I see. So the flag is said that for the people of Vietnam, they raise up to that people rise up was not the true purpose. The purpose is they fulfill the expansion policy of international communism.
Yes, there is a very interesting article from a French historian, Rivel. They have written an article, Ho Chi Minh, 2 point, le détournement du patriotisme. Le détournement du patriotisme. C'est-à-dire, that means Ho Chi Minh 2 point, it is the pretext of the patriotism is only on pretext.
So you were close to Ho Chi Minh. How close was you? Can you tell about the relationship between you and Ho Chi Minh?
I have a very respect for him, but now I have not any respect for him because I realized that Ho Chi Minh is a negative personality. He committed a very great mistake to bring the Marxism-Leninism inside the country. And so this is a destroy all the country by the war and by the lack of freedom. The war and the lack of freedom. The fatality for our country. So now I realize that Ho Chi Minh is not a positive personality. He's very, very negative. I say, I'm sorry, when our president sees the king of Thailand,
You were very close to Ho Chi Minh. How you describe Ho Chi Minh, who he was and what kind of person he was?
At the former time, I always think he is a great patriot. But by the time, I think now it is not so. He is a communist before the patriot. He is more communist than patriot. Yes. His objective, his main objective is the communization of the country, than the independence and than the freedom for the people.
Everything you tell the Vietnamese people to fight against American, was it the truth or what was it, Ho Chi Minh, when he told his own people? Did he tell the truth about calling people stand up to fight in the war? Was it he tell the truth to people?
The fighting against American is only a pretext for the objective. The main objective is always the communization of the country.
So he didn't tell the truth.
To guard the leadership for the single party. The single party, this is the Communist Party.
So he didn't tell the truth to people at all.
Yes, he not tell the truth to the people. He hide the truth to the people.
Well, this is a small thing, but I want to brought up. When I was a college student, I saw his picture on Parimat. He was eating breakfast. I see he have matinees. He have also the luxurious food to eat. And on the other hand, when Communist Party always describe him like a very simple man who sacrificed all his whole life for people and for the country. What do you think about that? About Ho Chi Minh? Was he a simple person and nice person, live a very simple life to sacrifice his own life for the people? Was it the truth?
The truth is he sacrificed his life not for the people, not for the independence. It is only the pretext. And really he decided to dedicate his life for the Communist Party, for the communization of the country.
So you were talking about Viet Minh Front, and from I learned from book saying that Ho Chi Minh after got all the other party rather under the Viet Minh Front to fight with the French, and then after the Dien Bien Phu we won the war, and then France go home, and after that he killed all the nationalist party who didn't follow him, who against him or raise issue don't agree with him, would all kill, like Khai Hung, Ta Thu Thâu, all of those nationalist people, did you know anything about that, and what do you think about that events? Yeah.
Yes, Ho Chi Minh, he always think that the only one party, the Communist Party, is a genuine patriotic party. But in reality, there are many other parties is also nationalist, also patriot. But Ho Chi Minh explained to the people that the single Communist Party is a genuine party, a good party. But all other is bad, all other is a reactionary party. Viet Nam is says is what Vietnamese that means a very bad against the people.
So he like a dictator, more or less, right?
Yet so he employ all means to exclude, to kill also on the other party. For example, the Nationalist Party, the Red Vietnam Đại Việt Party.
I see. So during that time, how old were you, and when you saw all the killing, were you scared? At the time that Ho Chi Minh killed all other member in Viet Minh who didn't follow him, how old were you, and did you see any in your own eyes, or you know anybody who was killed?
They also hide the people on this kill. Yes, they hide the people. He forbid on the newspaper to write out this news. On is secret extermination of the people of the other party, of the nationalist party.
And so actually, most people didn't know about the killing, and later on they know about it. Nothing they can do about it. Nobody can say or do anything.
But people saw, but people now on this, but he don't dare speak out. Yes.
So were you afraid of those? So you don't, nobody dare to do anything that against Ho Chi Minh and his party, or how the atmosphere like for all the officers in North Vietnam Army when they saw all the killing?
Yes, you know that many people of the other party, patriotic party, has been killed. But they explain their own ways. That is a reactionary, is the lackey of American, lackey of French.
Okay, we go a little further into the regime, communist regime after that. Was it during the time from 1954 until 1975 there was any rebel force were formed in North Vietnam? I want to point out a few like Nhân Văn Giai Phẩm. Was it there's some rebel force in North Vietnam?
Yes, I know at that time there was a movement in the people of literature. Yes, many writers they ask simply they ask the freedom of working, the freedom of writing. But they have a punition by the government and the party. Punished by to forbid in 2 or 3 years to write out on the newspaper. And so there are some on more than 30 writers is sent to the re-education camps.
But how do you define re-education camp?
In the re-education camps is in place in the countryside that they have to work very hardly on the field, yes, in to transportation on the fabric, on the yes.
But you said school, so school you can come and you can go home. Will they be able to go home from the re-education camp they call?
At that time, the education camps, no brutality, no, not that, but a very miserable life.
But more like a prison.
Separate from the family and from the other friendship. Friend.
They also punish the family, did they? I mean, if I'm a wife of one of those writers, they, in society, I will not, I mean, receive like all the benefit like all the citizens would like.
Yes, all the people of Nhân Văn Giải Phóng are separated and by the family, from their friends. They are solely on the countryside or on the mountains. It's education camps.
Meanwhile, what happened to their family?
They is very, very in bad life, very miserable, very poor, and some are dead in this time.
Okay, we are talking about in the south and President Modi. He had many programs such as Up Chiến Lược to prevent the communists can enter into the hub or the village. What do you think about Up Chiến Lược program of Mr. Modi?
I think that the Up Chiến Lược program for Modi it is a very, very good thing because many, many difficulties for us. Many, many difficulties for us. Along 68, 69, till 70 and 71. We met many, many difficulties to recruit men for our army. And
somebody said that Up Chiến Lược almost cross out the invasion of north to the south. Is that statement is somehow accurate? I mean,
this Up Chiến Lược program has a very positive account of Modi. Yes, because for our army many, many difficulties to approach, to enter in the village.
Problem between North and South Vietnam, between Vietnamese to Vietnamese. Do you know anything about it? And if so, what do you think about that?
At that time, we have heard nothing about that. Nothing about
Is
that.
it a rumor?
It's a rumor and not. After 75 only, when we enter in Independence Palace, we met with many people in the South, and I realized that there's a very good intention, but Ho Chi Minh have sending a bouquet of flower to Modi, but this is only one hidden aspect, not genuine. Yes.
Okay. So, what do you think about President Modi?
I think he is a patriot, a nationalist, but his regime is many negative aspects. For example, to employ Madame Ngo Dinh Nhu, and so it is a bad aspect. The family in the political situation at that time.
So, Do you think that the North have any involvement with the coup d'etat Mo Dinh?
Coup d'etat Ho Chi Minh at 79, 73,
1963.
in 1963, yes. And this bring a very good opportunity to the North. And after this coup d'etat, North Vietnamese decided to invite the whole great unity in the South. They see the opportunity that the South Vietnamese are very weakened after that.
So you were very close to Ho Chi Minh at that time, I believe. How would he react when he received the news that Mo Dinh was killed in the coup d'etat? Did you see by your own eye how Ho Chi Minh and his cabinet would react when they received the news about the death of Mo Dinh, President Mo Dinh?
Yeah, immediately after the death of Mo Dinh, I have formed a delegation for the South. And myself, I was in this delegation to see on the spot what is the situation in the South.
Actually, you entered to the South during that time by yourself and you didn't have any challenge? I mean,
Not so much challenge. And at the time, there are many, many helicopters and many armored vehicles, but we are in the jungle, in the forest,
so
in the peace of Ho Chi Minh. Yeah.
So your delegation entered to the South through the jungle and you have a meeting in the jungle or in Saigon?
Not on Saigon, only on the Tây Nguyên place, and in some provinces as Quang Ngai and Bình Định.
Wow. How you enter to the South? Would you walk through the Ho Chi Minh Trail?
Yes, by the Ho Chi Minh Trail. By the Ho Chi Minh Trail. But by the time, by walking. Not at the time they had not car.
How long it take for you to walk through Ho Chi Minh Trail to Da Nang?
From the north to the south, we had taken 3 months.
3 months?
3 months. 3 months by walking. And on way there are 30 kilograms on the back.
What do you carry in there, sir?
I carry 30 kilograms of rice, yes, the tent, the far, and the medicine, the food, also.
So getting from north to the south through Ho Chi Minh Trail was very popular way of going from north to south during that time, was it?
Yes, at that time. After that, we had to envoy a whole division on the south to prepare the many attacks at that time. And so the mountain in 68 by the attack, red attack.
How many divisions did they send from north to south to operate the mountain, how many divisions from north to south?
We have sent about the forces of 3 divisions.
3 divisions, each division had how many soldiers, sir?
3 divisions and many, many regiments. Regiment with about 3,000 people,
Oh, so
3,000 soldiers.
So about 10 from 3 divisions and plus all the supporting unit to become like 10,000 troops from north
Yes,
to carry out the mountain.
Yes, to carry out the mountain. But we have many, we suffer many great losses after mountain. It's a big loss on the whole year of 69, 68 and 69.
So to your assessment, you think that North Vietnam lost the battle of Tet offensive?
Yes, we have a loss, a very big loss. All our army is decimated by the revenge of American troops and also by the South Vietnamese troops. But we won in the press of American press. Yes, yes.
During the Tet offensive battle, many people, civilian in Hue were killed, and they were killed brutally, cruelly. Some were tied up, and people believe that some of them were buried alive. Who did that killing, sir?
The people, Hue people have been killed is I think about 3,000 to 5,000, 3,000 to 5,000.
Thank you.
And they explain that they are not ordered from the general staff to kill people. Not. The Communist Party has not put the order to kill people, but they have the responsibility. The Central Committee have his responsibility, because before the fighting, they have a manual, a document to explain that the Hue area had many reactionary people. It's the most reactionary of the South, because the monarchy family, or the royal monarchy, the party of Nguyễn Văn Thiệu and Ngô Đình Diệm, the party Dân Chủ, and many members of the party, and there are many cadres of Ngô Đình Diệm. Many bad cadres, many cruelty. For example, the member of the party of Ngô Đình Cẩn, the brother, the young brother of Ngô Đình Diệm. They explain that all area is many reactionary. So when they enter in the area, they have put many people in jail. And when the American troops, the Marine troops, they come with many cannon from the sea, the bomb exploded many places. They must decide to withdraw to the mountain. And the superior decided that they must bring with them all the prisoner. But he don't mean to take that, because the plane, American planes, has bombarded very hardly. And so their leader, the commander of the unity of company, battalion, and regiment, decided to kill the prisoner.
Who was that person?
They made a consensus of all, because their leader decided that all must keep the prisoner to the mountain.
So in other words, you think that
Don't let the prisoner let away. So they decide, they send
so that
to kill.
decision they made right there in the battle,
Yeah.
by the commander of that battle from North Vietnam
Yes.
Communist force,
Yeah.
not from the upper party. That's what you
Yeah.
explain.
But after that, there are many rumors and many news about that. And so I think I understand there are two commanders commit the measure of kỷ luật, or disciplinary measure. The commander of the area is General Trần Văn Quang, and the political commissar Lê Trường have submit the critical as a punition of this responsibility on the kill of Hui people.
What happened to the two men?
Two men.
There was some witness in Hue during the massacre happened. Some of the Communist Party, in the South, they even chased the student of Hue University and their family and killed in front of people. Although, so how do you explain about that?
And that offensive,
yes, in Hue.
in way they are not the soulèvement, the uprising, as promised the Communist Party. No uprising, nothing. In the South, only in Hue, in Saigon, in all the country, there was the attack by the army force, but people remain very quiet. People don't uprising. It is a big mistake from our side.
Okay, would you graduate from Viet University, or some of your biography saying that you?
Yes, yes. I was in my young age. I have studied in the lycée, French lycée, lycée Khai Dinh at that time.
So during that masquerade in Hue, any of your friends, family, colleague died?
No, not that.
You said that it was a mistake from the communist side attacking Hue and killed that many people. You explained, it was not from the top, but from the, battle right there, the general decided that. But how do you feel about killing that many people? In the people, most of them was very normal citizen who just want to live their life. What do you think about the killing in Hue?
There are many good people have been killed. No distinction, because they fix a norm. In each hamlet, for example, there are 10 or 20 reactionary, and so you take them.
When the president died, and then 2 years later, the American decided to send troops into Vietnam to fight the war. How would you react when you received the news about American sent troops to South Vietnam, 1965?
Yes, in 1963, 64, they begin to invite American troops in the South.
So 65 is most is the year that most.
65, yes, 65.
Before that, they had only advisor, and they have on economy. And the 65 most that 2 brigades of Marines were sent to Vietnam. That's for the first time ever. They sent troops to South Vietnam. Americans sent troops to South Vietnam.
Yeah, 64.
65.
65. To command the troop in Da Nang and in other countries.
Brigades.
Yes.
Marines.
Marine Corps.
Oh, well, that time you receive the news. How you react to that news? You think that's a great thing or what? Or you have the North have more reason to fight the South or what?
I think that at that time the Americans lost an opportunity to gain the war, to avoid such as a defeat. If they envoy a small force to embark and to seize a very, very little portion of the north. For example, by Đồng Hới, Vĩnh Linh, for example. If they launch a debarkment on a small portion, the world is very, very changed, very much.
Outcome will be different, you mean? The outcome of the war will be different if they do that.
Because at the time, the Communist Party certainly must decide that the defense of the North is in priority. So he don't envoy most troops in the South. But I think at that time, American intelligence service had lost the opportunity. He don't know that at 62, when American prepared to invite a troop in Vietnam, China headquarters and Vietnam General Staff have reached a secret treaty, very important. This treaty stipulate that if American troops enter in North Vietnam by the ground troop, the Chinese will invite immediately the ground troop in North Vietnam. If American attack by naval, the Chinese will enter in the battlefield.
But the American troop did send to Vietnam, did Chinese troop was sent to North Vietnam as well?
Yes, as well.
Many of them, sir.
Yes, they started. But after 2 years only, by the end of '64, Mao Zedong himself annullated this treaty, annullated secretly this treaty. They explained to our general that for China, one Korean war is enough. And Mao critiqued their general that they have too-minded, too exciting. So he decided to annulate this secret. But I think that American side don't know it. If they know it, they can invite a very small troop to seize Đồng Hới and Vĩnh Linh, a very, very small, and all the world will be changed. We must decide that the North is very important. The North is the base, the area for whom the war, and the North is socialism camp. The North is in the socialism camp. So if they attack the North, it's a small portion, the world changes completely.
By equal to what you said, somebody told me that during the live battle operation, that the...
I say, excuse me, I see that, I have said that to Conby, to Mr. Conby, and to General Westmoreland.
You did tell them that?
Yes.
What did they say when you told them that?
That on the American side, they don't know that. They don't know that. They a lack, a very lack of the intelligence service of the CIA. CIA.
So, by in echo to that, Do you remember the linebacker operation that the American did it in, I think, 1972 or 72
Yes.
to release, to try to release to rescue the American
So yeah.
prisoner.
Uh,
And then I believe they bombed Hanoi 11 days.
yeah.
And then, I mean, it brought a bunch of damage. And then some people already said if American bomb one more day, North Vietnamese would surrender. And somebody even go farther. They said that
No.
they even have a defeat speech. Was it true? Do you know anything about that?
Not. It is not true.
No?
Because the bombardment by the plane, American plane, do not bring many damage because people is in the countryside. All the people on the Hanoi citoyen is evacuated on the countryside. So we must submit this kind of bombardment a long year, many years long. It's not damage.
You see, although bombing, even a lot of bomb, it didn't do much damage for the north. That's what you say.
Yes, we must submit that. Submit that long time.
You have to do more and constantly more than you bomb and you go.
It is the people who do that, but the soldiers not.
What do you think about the POW?
Because the party asked all the people to submit more sacrifice for the reunification of the South. They ask always.
So people sacrifice,
Sacrifice, yes, yes.
and they do much damage.
Well, yes. And so, if they don't speak out, some people take it.
So
But
there was torture, but not in general. It would not.
in general, no, there are no atrocity by it means. They explain always that good treatment for the prisoner of war, especially with the pilot, American pilot. There are not in general no atrocity, but especially I have seen, I admit there's some violence when the people just as an interrogation.
You spoke to some of them. What do you think about their spirit? Was they there and they were very, even they miss home and everything, and they are prisoner. And you spoke to them personally. But what was their state of mind during that time?
I have met with Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda?
Yes, and some other American people to visit the prisoner, American prisoner, in '72, I think.
But what do you think about Jane Fonda? What do you think about her, and then what do you think about her act?
He is also a kind of the victim of the propaganda. Jane Fonda is also a victim of propaganda.
One in your statement, you said that because people like her and another American politician were added into the defeat of the war from American side. Can you explain about that statement?
It is very wet. I know that, and I understand this position. I understand this position. As myself, I have lied by the propaganda, and it is victims on the society, American society, and also the Capitol, the American senator. Many was victims also by the communist propaganda.
And one of the thing you already wrote is that every day Communist Party high-ranking, or you can say that the Central Party listen to the news about what's happening in the United States, like all the protests and then everything, and that how you plan the war accordingly. Can you elaborate? Can you talk more about that? So you explain. First of all, was it the truth, and secondly, how that happened, and what do you think about it?
They take the Americans' opinion is very, very important. So they make the propaganda by the means of a newspaper, by the means of delegation, by the means of the tele and the radio posts, to explain that the Communist Party of Vietnam is a patriot party. The main objective is independence. Justice is in our side. And they explain that the foreign soldiers in our country is American. Why American envoy so many soldiers in the country? And in North Vietnamese, there are not happens. There are no Soviet troop, no Chinese troop at all. And so they explain, and they reach, they essay to reach the American opinion. Okay. And so to mobilize the front, the many motivation to the young student in many yes, high school in USA.
So how big is the propaganda department of North Vietnam? How many of them, and what kind of budget they got a year to do so, or they put a lot of money, a lot of force into that to that department, so they can make sure everybody, believe the way they want them to be.
We must many a budget for the propaganda, and they form many propaganda agents to the French, to Italy, to Japan, also to Australia, to explain all this about the objective of the war.
On the other hand, there was any private newspaper, media in the North allowed to raise their opinion about the war or anything in the North during the war and now?
Yes.
There was any private
On is official. On is official. The official of the party and the government. The TV, yes, the newspaper is all official organ of the party and the government.
Nobody can.
Nobody can
Do anything.
Yes.
We've talked about the 1975 event that Saigon fell, and then you was the one who you saw our picture. You were one of the troops entering into the President's Palace. Can you tell us about that event? How you go from the north to the south? You have any resistance, and when you go to the south, who you met in the palace and everything else? Can you tell us about that story?
At the time, the situation changed quickly, very quickly, you see. At the end of 74, on the card of our country, the card of the South, we have only 3 small points in Cam Lo, and in Central Committee, Dak To, and nearby Saigon is An Lộc. A very, very small pond. And on the beginning of 75, we have a planning only on this year, 75, to take some province, and to prepare the last offensive will be in 76. 76 is a year of election, presidential election in the USA. And we think only at 76 we reach only some consensus between the North and the South. The peaceful and peaceful the war by the means of negotiation. We do not think that the situation is so happens so quickly after the Ban Method on March, and on April we see only more than 10 provinces, and after that in all the South.
So you very much go straight from north to south,
Yes.
without any major reservations.
Yes, yes.
Some of the South Vietnamese soldiers, we interviewed them, and they said that they cannot fight because they don't have ammunition. Their tank don't have gas. It was
They realize immediately that the capital abandoned the war.
Abandoned the war.
Yeah. And so they decide to launch all our forces to the south. And this only in April. And we think that the war will last some months. But immediately in April.
I saw with my own eyes. I totally saw you, but I didn't realize it was you. And now we can meet here. I was then, next to the street, then near Cathedral, near the President Palace. I saw the tank moving in and hit the gate, and I saw with my own eyes. And I saw a lot of South Vietnamese shoot themselves, kill themselves right there because they could not, protect their own country. And the North force moving to the palace and took over the country and defeated so far and so on. What do you think about the South Vietnamese army? How did they fight? And that 5 generals killed themselves because they lost the war. What do you think about them?
At that time, I am in the first unit, not in the first tank, because a unit there are many columns, and in each column there are 5 tanks, and they have in the first unit, and not the first column, no, not the first tank. And I think that South Vietnamese has fight valiantly, but there are no means, the ammunition. And the last, the South Vietnamese government envoy to American to ask immediately the hand, what about $700 million of ammunition, and this be refused. And immediately I understand it is time to gain to the full victory at that time, and to launch the last attack on Presidential Palace. And at that time, and there are 2 generals, but the general don't see big me.
Can you say that again about you being the highest ranking officer at the time? Repeat that, please.
He
Yes.
would like you to repeat that you were the highest ranking.
High ranking officer, because there are 2 generals, to interact, but they don't see the South Vietnamese government. Myself is the sole officer of high ranking to see that. But I don't see the surrender because it is not my duty. So I did not, I have not the duty to take the surrender of Big Ming.
What you... Okay, so I'll go back to that. So when you met them, what did they tell you? Who you met there? You remember anyone in person? And then what did they tell you and what did you tell them?
At the time, Big Ming has all 37 people in that room, 37. I have all the name of 37. And Big Ming said, I have waiting you from the morning to the transfer of power. Immediately I reply, no problem of transfer of power. This is not my duty, I think that. And I said, you cannot give what is not in your hand. On your power is collapsing. So I see him very, very sad. So I speak normally with Big Ming about his hand, about his collection of hoa lan, of orchid. And I talk to Mr. Premier Minister Vu Van Mao about his duty in the law school, about his, he was a Buddhist. He had cut his hair at that time. And so Mr. Mao begin to smile. I said that on this day is a very, very fair, a very good day because the war, the so long war had ended this day. And so he begin to smile.
And then what
and it is, after that, I see that Mr. Nguyen Van Hảo, he's a deputy prime minister, take me apart, and he said me, we have take 16 tons of gold to transfer to you. Please say to the North to invite people to take this amount of gold. I said, it is genuine? Yes. I am responsible of this. And after 2 days, there one plane envoyed from Hanoi to Saigon to take this gold.
What happened to those 16 tons of gold? Everybody was questioning that. What happened to that, up to that 16 tons of gold now? I mean,
they explained, in one time I asked Trường Trinh, Mr. Trường Trinh for that. He said, I can see you on this gold in this spirit, because we take some year, 1 or 2 tons, to buy on thing from abroad, to make our mill, our factory in activities.
all those have any record, or I mean any committee decide what to do with that, or just the decision for?
There no compte rendu to the assembly. The assembly, National Assembly, don't.
So it could very much that somebody.
I think that is in party. The most party is to the budget of the Communist Party. To the Communist Party.
So you think that 16 tons of gold may be gone and divided among some of the people?
Yes, irresponsibility and that. Yes.
So what happened to that 37 people when you met in in the palace, President Palace on April 30th, 1975. Any of them were in prison after that, or anything happened to them? Can you tell?
Oh, except that 2 or 3 is not in jail. Except 2 or 3, and all of this was in jail for 3 years, 4 years, and even for 10 years, more than 10 years.
So your vote when you met them, they said, it's okay, it's peace now, it can be good from now. What you
They explain only that they are killed, anybody will have been killed. Not anybody have been killed. It's a very good thing. But you see, about 300,000 people was in jail. 300,000.
who were
Okay.
them?
All his officers, the cadre, all the members of the political party, all is in jail. They said, they claim that is a relocation camp, but he is jailed from the Bộ An, the Ministry of Security in charge of all this relocation camp.
You see, when the North cut to the South, many people would speculate that there will be a bloodbath in Vietnam because the communists took over the power. Well, bloodbath didn't happen, but like you just said that 300,000 people were in the government and in the army of old regime was put in prison. But one of the article I read, and if I'm not mistaken, you said there was one time close to 1 million people of the South were put in the prison and kept from north to south in the prison that built after the war from north to south. Was it the truth? How can you explain that?
Oh. They claim also they are not bloodbath, but I think they are worse than bloodbath. Worse than bloodbath. Worse, for example, 2 million of both people, and how many dead in the ocean. And all the people is lack of freedom. Just now, until now, all people lack of freedom. The freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom of have their fields in countryside. All is confiscated. All is confiscated by the party. All the field is confiscated by the party. It is worse than would work. And all the country from north to south, lack of freedom.
So your family have any affected from the what you call the worse than a bloodbath policy from the Communist Party? Your family have anybody in prison because of they were in the South?
They have taken measure of disciplinary against my family. For example, they obliged my wife to retire immediately, to lose the salary, to lose. And myself in my house in Hanoi, they cut the telephone. Till now, 20 years now, had not communication. And my wife asked the post office, they explained that according to the order from superior, we don't allow give you the post of telephone.
That after you defeated to the
Yes.
war. But before that, did you have any relative in the South that were in prison after the war? Do you have anyone in your family?
Not, it is normally, but for example, my daughter He was a medicine doctor in the Institute, Central Committee, or Central Institute of Ophthalmology. They met the chirurgy on the eye, and after that, they obliged to quit his job, her job, and to take as a distributed the lunette distributed to the in this institute, and don't allow to make the surgery.
So what made you defeated to the New World? What made you decide to leave the Communist Party and join the Free World?
It is in 1790, when I was invited by the Communist Party of France to attend a yearly festivity of the journal Humanité. And also, before that, I have met many demands of change of the political line of the party. But they don't accept that, and they have many critical, very severe critical to me along all the cadre of the journal. And I have written about more than 10 books in French, in English, in Vietnamese, and I have, by the means of many Radio France, radio of VOA, radio of Radio Free Asia, to invite my idea inside country.
So, but what made you, what reason that made you was a colonel of the North Vietnam Army, and you was the assistant editor of one of the, paper from the party, which means you were in the very high-ranking Communist Party and also in the army. What made a person like that, leave his own party and go to join the Free World? What really the reason?
The reason is I decided to gain the freedom to our people, because I am journalist. I have voyaged, I have go to many countries. Before 20 years, I have in more than 30 countries. So I have always met the comparison between the freedom of people, other country, and the freedom of our people. So I decided that all my life I will be a newspaperman, a free newspaperman, to fight for the freedom of our people. It is my decision. I accept many difficulties in my life. I accept all the sacrifice for my family, for my friend in the country, to gain at the end the freedom, the complete freedom, the democracy for our country, for our people.
So by doing so, your family would punish, like you just described earlier, and then you live a very simple life like a citizen here compared with your friend who's still in the Communist Party. They become millionaire, American millionaire or billionaire. Do you have any regret that what you did?
No, I gain always my aims. It is in service of my country, in service for my people, family people. And I think always that Vietnamese people deserve a good life, a free life. So, because I love very, very much my country and my people. And I think I have endured many sacrifices, too much sacrifice, and she deserves to have a free life for all the people.
So they everywhere now communist because they try to immerse you into the free war, and they everywhere they ever attempt to kill you or do anything harm you personally.
No, I am very insecurity because I gain the love of all the Vietnamese people outside and also inside. I've made more and more friends inside the country by the means of my article, by my books, Envoy to the Country. I've met many new friends, many new friends, and all over the world. Especially in USA, in many students, in many high schools, in Canada, in USA, in Australia, in France, and in England also. And so it is very great pleasure for me.
Do you have any regret in your life?
Hmm?
You have any regret in your life?
Regret?
Regret in your life?
No, never the regret. Never the regret in the life. Because in my young life, I have fighting for the independence of my country. And now, in 20 years, I have a new fighting for the freedom of our country and our people. I have no regret.